Hello, divine creations, divine marvels, children of God. Thank you so very much for joining in to this video. To anyone who's new, this channel and this video is dedicated to the life, work, and teachings of a very special spiritual teacher named Bruno Groening. You can find out more about him on the website that I've posted in the chat box and posted below this video. Welcome one and welcome all. So what's on my mind and heart this morning is God. More specifically, what is God? More specifically, healing our own misunderstandings of God. And how Bruno Groening's teachings have profoundly helped me on that topic. So, as I've shared many times, when I first came to Bruno Groening and his teachings, I was an agnostic. I definitely did not believe in a God or a higher power. I didn't believe in anything beyond the material world. I also didn't disbelieve in it. I was a true agnostic. I thought maybe there is something beyond the material world. Maybe there isn't. I don't know, and we human beings cannot know. I was convinced. I was utterly convinced. Well, I was very desperate when I found Bruno Groening's teachings. My health was falling apart. The medical profession did not have any possible solution. Hey, Luna. And so, I heard all these. I saw the Bruno Groening documentary film. I met people who said that they had been healed. I didn't know what to think of all of that because, as I said, I didn't believe in such things. But I was, I guess, desperate enough to be open. And so once I experienced my first healing, medically impossible healing, then I knew there was a higher power. But I didn't really define it. I didn't really have an understanding of what it was. I just knew that I trusted Bruno Groening. Bruno Groening said there was a God that helped. There was a power. So I just trusted it. And I knew there was something because I had experienced something stronger than the laws of chemistry, biology, and physics in my own body. So I had proof. But I didn't know what. I didn't know what this thing was. And I didn't really think about it much. Just like there is a God that helps and heals. In fact, Bruno Groening said, trust and believe. The divine power helps and heals. That was enough for me. I don't know what this thing called God is that Bruno Groening is talking about, but I know that it helps and heals. And more so when I tune in, when I have the intention to receive this divine power. And down the road, I came to this idea of being connected to God. I said, well, when I do this, it feels really good. I feel this deep peace, this deep wholeness, this joy. And that was my theology. That's about as deep or as far as I went with it. And then over time, I started to notice that Bruno said some very interesting things about God. One thing that Bruno Groening said was that God is goodness. In fact, Bruno would use the word das Guten, the good, to talk about God. He would use the words interchangeably, and that really struck me. God as goodness. it also struck me because it spoke to the experience I had. As I tuned in, when I tuned in, I felt a goodness. So that was very interesting. And Bruno said, God never punishes. That was a mind blower for me. I was raised in a particular Christian denomination where, yes, God was loving, but God was also very wrathful, like very wrathful, like worthy of being scared of. I think I grew up being scared of God, and I think a lot of people do, based on things that they're taught in church. And yet, because they're afraid of punishment, I know I was, and yet here was Bruno Groening saying that God never punishes. That was a bit of a mind blower. And then I found the book Powers of the Spirit by Alfred Haas, which I've talked about many times on here and recommended many times, and I continue to recommend it. And that book, it's not like that book contradicted the things that I had been taught about Bruno Groening, but it gave a very different, I don't even want to say different, a much, what I would say, fuller picture of what Bruno Groening taught. Including things like talking a little bit more about reincarnation and talking about things like that, what it means that God never punishes. And there's one sentence from that book. I've said it so many times here, and I will continue to say it for my well-being, much less hopefully for others. And it's this: the state of the world is steered by God. Only things that serve as a lesson are allowed to happen. When I first read that, it struck me so deeply. And I kept sharing it on this live. I've been sharing it now, I think, for over, has it been 10 years? I say that quote. Why? Well, because it's a very profound worldview. Because it's easy to say, thank you, God, when good things happen. But how to understand when painful things happen. Everybody here has had painful things happen. Most people here have had excruciating, painful things happen to them. Some of us have had many, 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 many excruciatingly painful things happen. And how to reconcile this sometimes immense suffering, with the idea that God is goodness. As Bruno said, that God is our loving parent. It can be very hard to reconcile those things. It's very easy to love God and think God is so good when everything is going good. It's a lot harder when things are very hard. So I've been sharing that sentence, that one sentence, for 10 years, and I still share it because I sometimes struggle with it when things get really hard. That is my definition of faith. That's what faith means to me. That trusting that God is all good, only good, that every negative thing that happens ultimately serves a positive purpose. And then here's my final definition of faith: that everything will be all right. Everything will work out in the end. It's very easy. Well, before I go to that point, so that's my definition that's what faith is to me, is complete and absolute trust in the goodness of God, and that because of the goodness of God, everything will work out. Everything will be okay. And I've come to that. That's my bottom line. That's my fundamental belief about life. And I came to it through Bruno Groening's teaching. First and foremost, that God is goodness. As Bruno said, love is God. God is Ordnung, German word meaning harmony, balance. Order doesn't quite sound, you could say natural harmony or order. God is goodness. God is love. God is aliveness, life, vitality, Leben. Leben gets translated as life. I'd say that's a little shallow translation. Aliveness, vitality, existence, being. That God is all these things, all these limitless good qualities, and every painful thing, every challenging thing that happens is for a lesson and ultimately will serve the good. Because of that quote of Bruno Groening's, because of the goodness I would feel when I would tune in. So it's one thing to declare it, it's another thing to live by it, to remember it, to hold that in mind. Especially when things are challenging. I'd say right now I'm in one of the deepest places of challenge in my life. I have 3 major, intense, challenging life situations. And I, for my well-being, I need to constantly come back to everything I've just told you. To live, because it's one thing to believe everything I just said, to have that thought in my mind, but it's another thing to live by it. As I said before, to actually trust. And so, having taken on this belief that God is goodness, I've been in this process of working through all the, what I'm going to say, horrible things I was taught about God growing up. That God was wrathful. That God was worthy of being afraid of. When I was young, there was a kid in my neighborhood who was a bit of a bully, and I was scared of him. I don't want to say fear is justified, but this person he was bigger than me, he was meaner than me, he had the capacity to hurt me. So, without having any sort of spiritual understanding at that young age, you could say, well, that fear was justified. This kid could hurt me. I didn't know how to defend or protect myself. I didn't know what to do. How much more so if God is wrathful or punishing, then, how terrifying is that idea that there's this infinite, limitless power that is wrathful and punishes. And so I've been in this process of releasing that. And, sometimes, and it's not like I walk around terrified of God, but there'll be moments, I remember one time I had this dream, like that I did something bad, something amoral in the dream. I didn't even harm someone. It was just something that was on the do not do list. And in the dream, I was maybe 11 or 12. And I did something that was on the do not do list. And I was like, oh my God, I'm going to go to hell and be tortured forever. Right? That's the fear. I don't like to criticize views. Some people on this channel, I'm guessing most do not believe in the idea of eternal torture, eternal hell. But that was part of what I was raised in. And even though I consciously, in my mind, don't believe that's true, there's this process of releasing that. And I would say struggling with that. Again, this isn't something I go around struggling day by day, but there are moments where this terror will seize me. And I assume part of it's the terror I felt as a child. And some of it is, it's a terrifying idea. The idea of a limitless, infinite power that if I don't do the right thing or I don't believe the right thing is going to torture me forever with no hope of release. Forever. So, in my view, it's a terrifying idea. And so there are moments where I'll be seized by this terror of, oh my God, I don't believe the right thing. Like, what if, da 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 da? Like, what if that's true? And I'm currently in dialogue with someone who's into Bruno's teachings and who, like myself, was raised in, you could say, a conservative Christian denomination, and sitting with the question. And so on a conscious level, it's very easy for me to say, that's absurd. I don't believe that. And then there's this process where this fear, or as I say, terror, occasionally bubbles up. And I assume Bruno spoke to this topic. I've not read anything on it. The things I have read is, Bruno says the good will prevail. Said everything will be all right. And he once was talking about, if someone really goes down the dark path, he said something along the lines of, such a person can become lost for quite some time. So that's all I know that Bruno Groening said on this topic. It's such a cliche, you'll hear it. Faith is a journey. I've heard that so many times. I didn't know what it meant. But now, to me, what it means is it's one thing to come to believe something. It's another thing to move that belief in the mind down into the heart and soul to where it becomes a place of trust. And I don't even like to use the word faith because it's been so, in my view, stolen by Western theology to mean belief. To me, faith means trust. And not so much trust in a specific dogma, but trust in God, in the divine, in our source, as Bruno said, in our Heavenly Father. That God is our loving parent, to trust in the goodness of the divine. And to circle back around, that's not so easy when things are going. That's not so easy when things are painful or challenging. It's very easy and natural when everything's just flowing, when you're getting what you want, when I'm getting what I want. But to really hold to that belief, I don't want to say belief, that trust, things aren't going well. Not so easy. All right. If anyone has any questions or comments, please feel free to type them in. I'm going to spend a little time tuning in, and then maybe I'll respond to some of what people shared. I'm going to assume that everyone here knows how to tune in according to Bruno Groening's teachings. In case you don't, please be open to the idea that not only is there a source, a creator of everything, but that creator is all around us and ultimately inside of us. And simultaneously, that this source of all that is constantly sending forth, you could say, an energy or a blessing, if you want to be technical, a transmission. It's one of the words Bruno used, transmission of an energy that blesses, that helps and heals. And please open yourself to receive that. And then observe your body with the intention to take in, to draw in that goodness. If the mind wanders off, bring it on back. Taking in, opening to receive, and then taking in. Just keep coming back to this intention to receive, goodness, to let go of what's not good. Letting thoughts pass on by. If there's a negative thought that's sticky, handing it over to Bruno or to God. All right, I'm going to close out with a short prayer. Beloved Source, our dear friend Bruno, please, for everyone who attended this live, please, the highest blessing. Please, for everyone who watches this, highest blessing and help. Please, for everyone who visits this YouTube channel, may they feel the presence and goodness of God. Please, for everyone who's sharing the teachings and work of Bruno Groening, please, for all the friends of Bruno Groening, please, for all those who are seeking the good in so many different ways, please, for ourselves, the great turnaround back to living in harmony with nature, back to communing with and listening to, following God, and back to the belief in our own inherent goodness and the inherent goodness of every human being. Let's take a moment for any special requests. Ask those inwardly. Thank you, thank you, thank you. People, of course, welcome to continue tuning in. Thank you to everyone who took the time to listen and hopefully reflect on some of the things I shared and to take some time to commune with the divine. And in essence, to clean themselves, be cleaned by the divine. Thank you so very much. Take care.